This is Sam Bushman
And Daniel Morrison.
for Why So Blues Top 10 Gaming Moments of 2009. So for the holiday season, Why So Blue had asked Dan and I to do a top 10 list for the holiday season. Originally we wanted to do a top 10 PlayStation 3 games of 2009. However, due to various reasons, Dan and I realized we had not played 10 new PlayStation 3 games in 2009. Because of this, we decided instead of doing top 10 PlayStation 3 games to do a top 10 gaming moments list.
This is a multi-platform list of games that we've played this year that don't specifically have to come from this year, but are games that we have played this year. And more specifically, there are moments that we remember from this year. So it's not exactly the best game of this year. It is more of just something that was memorable this year.
My first pick for a good gaming moment of 2009 was a game called Sanitarium. Sanitarium was developed in 1998 by Dreamforge Entertainment. It's an adventure game where the player plays the role of a character with amnesia who travels through various dream worlds that represent different forms of insanity. And one unique aspect of the game was it used the imagery and the different grotesque characters that you encounter to indirectly tell the story of who your character is. And as the story unfolds, you slowly learn about the character's identity. Him being a research doctor, and the antagonist of the story as well, a Dr. Morgan, who was a little less humane and just kind of your atypical bad guy doctor fellow. The moment in Sanitarium that really stood out to me was the very last sequence where you have your final climactic encounter with Dr. Morgan. It's set up as this kind of chess piece field where the puzzle of the whole thing is you being able to travel along these ever-changing paths represented by black goo and empty space. You have to traverse around the empty space and avoid the goo. And what really set it apart was the fact that you had to travel down these paths in order to grab these glowing orbs, which are being held by statues representing the characters you play throughout the game. And these characters represent like the innocence of your main character, his pride in research he's done in the Aztec religion and society, which played into the story, as well as a comic book character that he liked when he was a little kid. And these represent like strength and bravery and innocence. And furthermore, the most pronounced visual aspect of this that I liked was near the rear of the level, there's an arm that's stretching up out of the back that has an IV line running into it. And it acts as a timer. You see there's this green goo flowing through the tube down to the arm. And once the green goo reaches the arm, it's game over, you restart the level, and you're presumed dead. And the reason for this is in reality, the main character is in a hospital bed in a coma, and Dr. Morgan in reality had inserted poison into his IV. And the whole idea is you're trying to solve this puzzle and get back to reality before the poison enters your body and kills you. And as you break these orbs, you see parts of the world break off and you begin to see the real face of your character who had been obscured the whole game. So it's kind of revealing his identity, confirming his character, and fighting off this final evil force. And it's just a final standoff that's very climactic, and it was very powerful to me.
It's a good example of how the old adventure genre was.
Right. I mean, it played to its strengths of being able to use these set-piece visual aspects to tell a story because they can control the whole environment. And it told a linear story, so you didn't have much choice, but it told it well, and it kept it interesting. It played to its strengths. I really enjoyed it.
All right, first one off my list I'm going to mention is Killing Floor. That was made this year by Tripwire Interactive. Killing Floor is a co-op survival game where a bunch of specimens have been unleashed on Britain, and you and a special force team have to basically wipe them out for money and stuff, and it's not very plot driven, but pretty fucking awesome. This game has a lot of intense moments. You play with like 5 of your buddies in this game. You are stuck in a cramped box or in just an open field, and you have no option but to just kill all the monsters on the map, and it gets very frantic at times.
So, there are other games like this out here, like Left 4 Dead. What is it about Killing Floor that really sold you compared to something like Left 4 Dead?
I think the main moment on this game that sells it over Left 4 Dead is that, unlike Left 4 Dead, there is no option to run away. Left 4 Dead, you kind of have this whole thing that as long as you're continuing forward, you never really have to go ahead and like just kill everything. This game, you have to kill everything, and if there's just a giant monster coming at you, you can run away, but you're eventually going to have to kill it.
The next game I had on my list was a game developed in 1999 by Black Isle Studios, and it's called Planescape Torment. This is an RPG built on BioWare's Infinity engine. This engine was used for Baldur's Gate, Icewind Dale, and a couple other choice RPGs. In Planescape Torment, you play a character who is immortal, and the whole idea of the game is you need to discover your identity. You begin to learn about the different lives you live because being immortal died several times, and ultimately try to get yourself killed. You're trying to cure yourself of your own immortality because you feel you don't need to live anymore. And as you go, like I said, as you go through, you learn more about the lives you've lived, the people you've encountered, and the apex of this was the moment that really stood out to me. This was the moment where you encountered your own tomb. This has its own little coffin in it, and it's gorgeously decorated. And in the center of it, there's just a series of walls with inscriptions on them. And it almost tells the myth and legend of yourself as a character. It discusses the wars you've fought, people you've met, your own observations about being good in one life and evil in another life. This character had lived several different lives because he kept essentially coming back to life after dying. And it completely changes your perspective of the game and the story. In particular, at the very beginning of the game, the first thing you learn about yourself is because of an inscription on your own back. And it's read to you by this floating skull character that becomes your partner throughout the game. And as you read these plaques in the tomb your own tomb, you reread that inscription. However, there was a line at the end that was never read to you, and it completely changes your perspective on the game thus far and the characters you've met. It added a great amount of gravity to the whole world, and it really made you think about what parts of this world have you not encountered but your character has. And to me, it was just really interesting and really made me think.
Yeah, I personally played this game a while ago, and it still is a very strong game over the years. It has a very interesting story that's unique. It's not a Tolkien fantasy RPG. It is definitely a unique game.
Yeah, I mean, the story just stands out in its own right. It's very dark and gritty, and I mean, the fact you're not trying to save your life, you're essentially trying to learn about yourself, and it really questions, do people need to live forever? And in this case, it's like, no, there's a reason why people die.
You're trying to kill yourself the entire game. It is
exactly.
Just such a reverse premise from anything else, where you're trying to survive. This game, you're trying to kill yourself.
Yeah.
All right. Next one that I will mention is Serious Sam HD. Now, Serious Sam was released in 2001 and was a pretty phenomenal game. And this year they went ahead and re-released it on their newest engine. Totally just the same fucking game again. And it just looks fucking awesome. And this game still has such a nice kick to it that it's really hard to find in all these new games. This game is hard. This is like one of the only games that I'll just go ahead and out of the box play it on normal and have a fucking challenge at it. Most games you just kind of put it up to hard and it doesn't even matter. This game, it is a fucking effort to go ahead and even play it through, even on normal. Specifically on Metropolis. This one is just a very hard level. It just is such a rush. There are so many creatures coming at you at once. You're just down just a big narrow alley of monsters just coming at you. You have to kill them right before they get to you. And then at the end is just an endless flood of monsters, and then you just have to jump into the final arena where you face off with another 100 monsters, and it just ongoing onslaught of monsters. Just, I don't know, some people might find it a little bit boring, but I honestly am just totally enjoyed the whole rush of so many monsters running at you at once.
Sounds like I can introduce a lot of those moments where you're kind of gritting your teeth and holding down the trigger and just Ramboing the whole thing.
Yeah. It's a fucking chain gun.
Yeah, I mean, I played a little bit of Serious Sam when it first came out, and I really enjoyed it. It was a different take on the first-person shooter. It focused not just on having multiple people blowing stuff up, but blowing a lot of stuff up, and it almost just made this whole faceless cannon fodder effect, where you weren't even aiming really. You were just kind of shooting into the mass and hoping to destroy all the enemies you could. And it's certainly fun for co-op. I mean, you could have guys coming from multiple fronts, and it was a very unique experience.
Yeah, it's another game that's good for co-op, but is even more impressive to play by yourself. It's like playing Contra. It's just such a manly game.
It'll put hair on your chest.
Yes, it will.